Welcome to The Explainer. So, for decades, we've kind of been sold this one very specific version of the Apollo moon missions. You know the one, humanity's greatest, most triumphant achievement, a completely clean narrative of scientific perfection. But recently, a fascinating and, honestly, much darker dimension to these missions has resurfaced. We are currently looking at newly declassified files, unsealed mission transcripts, and government records that document unexplained lights, completely strange encounters, and mysterious objects seen out there near the moon by the astronauts themselves. So today, we're going to take a deeply investigative look at what was actually reported up there in the void.
Right out of the gate, 4th of July fireworks. Now, that is not a description of a celebration back here on Earth. That is the exact terminology an Apollo 17 astronaut used to describe some deeply strange visual phenomena they witnessed right out the window of their spacecraft. And the thing is, it wasn't just the final mission either. The legendary Buzz Aldrin also reported highly unusual, totally unexplained encounters during that historic Apollo 11 journey.
Which really brings us to the core question we're going to unpack today. What exactly did astronauts see during humanity's missions to the moon? With all these Pentagon and UFO-related documents coming to light recently, there is just massive public interest. I mean, everybody wants to know if there's some sort of cover-up, or if maybe there's a scientific reality we're just entirely missing. So today, we're going to walk through exactly what is in these files, and hopefully, separate the facts from the fiction.
Okay, let's dive into Chapter 1, the declassified files. Now, just to ground this whole mystery in historical reality, because we are definitely not just talking about internet rumors here. We're tracking actual, official astronaut debriefings, verbatim mission transcripts, and documented reports of strange lights in space. Stuff that's been tucked away in government archives for years. We start way back in 1969 with the Apollo 11 mission, jump to 1972 with Apollo 17, and then we leap all the way to the recent declassification of Pentagon UFO-related files. What we're witnessing is basically a collision of eras. Decades-old secrets and forgotten mission logs are suddenly resurfacing today, and they are demanding a modern explanation.
All right, but before we go literally any further, we need a firm reality check. None of these files prove extraterrestrial life. As we neutrally explore these documents today, it's absolutely crucial to acknowledge that while the internet completely exploded over these releases, well, most experts agree that many of these sightings actually have ordinary scientific explanations. We're here to look at the facts of what was reported impartially, not to endorse alien theories.
Moving right along to Chapter 2, Apollo 11's Strange Encounters.
So let's go back to 1969. During that very first manned moon landing, Buzz Aldrin described an object near their spacecraft of a sizable dimension. Now, initially, the crew reportedly thought this object might just be, a drifting panel from the Saturn V rocket that propelled them into space. But as they kept observing it, the object apparently remained incredibly difficult to identify, just kind of following them as they drifted through deep space.
And honestly, it didn't stop there. Aldrin's additional reports included intermittent flashes inside the dark cabin. I mean, can you imagine that? You're millions of miles from Earth, trying to sleep in absolute pitch-black darkness, and suddenly these tiny flashes of light are appearing right in front of your eyes. The crew also noted a bright light source outside that they briefly wondered might be some kind of laser. Again, there is zero evidence this was alien technology, but these incredibly strange sightings, which are documented officially, just continue to fuel rampant speculation decades later.
Which brings us to Chapter 3, Apollo 17's lunar fireworks.
Now, jumping forward to humanity's last crewed mission to the moon, what's really interesting here is the sheer variety of the anomalies they documented. The Apollo 17 crew reported drifting particles outside the spacecraft, sudden flashes, bright moving objects, and even glowing dots or formations out in the lunar sky. And remember, these aren't just amateurs getting easily spooked, right? These are highly trained observers officially documenting these glowing formations in their scientific mission records.
All right, Chapter 4, the Science of Space Sightings.
And this brilliantly illustrates the divide we need to understand. We really have to look at the fascinating gap between human experience and biological reality. On one hand, you have this surreal, terrifying experience, intermittent flashes inside a dark cabin. But on the other hand, the scientific reality, cosmic rays interacting with the human eye. Scientists later suggested that out in the deep vacuum of space, cosmic radiation actually passes right through the spacecraft and interacts directly with the optic nerve. That's what causes astronauts to perceive flashes of light even with their eyes completely closed. Crazy, right?
So let's quickly fire through some of the other official scientific explanations. We've got space debris, optical distortions, and reflections off those really thick spacecraft windows. The cosmic radiation we just talked about, frozen fuel crystals catching the harsh sunlight, and of course, camera and photographic artifacts. Literally any one of these mundane explanations can create visuals completely unlike anything we experience down here on Earth. We're exploring the facts, and the fact is, space itself creates visual tricks.
But hey, I really want you to exercise a bit of sensory empathy with me for a second. Think about it. Isolation, absolute darkness, millions of kilometers from Earth. Just try to imagine the sheer psychological strain of deep space. The human brain was simply never built to exist in this kind of environment. When you're staring out into the absolute dark void, and you see a sudden, unexplained light, well, the scientific explanation of a frozen fuel crystal might be the absolute farthest thing from your mind in that exact terrifying moment.
Next up, Chapter 5, Fueling the Internet Reaction.
Man, the absolute second these old Apollo transcripts were brought back into the spotlight, social media just instantly fractured into three distinct camps. On one side, you had people aggressively claiming this was absolute, undeniable extraterrestrial proof. In the middle, the skeptics just totally dismissing the entire story as exaggerated internet hysteria and clickbait. And then on the third side, a much smaller group pointing out the already known facts, basically noting that a lot of these events were partially public for years, just newly centralized in these declassified files. But the reality of today's internet culture is that a decades-old mystery can instantly become global news. Because online, mystery just spreads like wildfire, way faster than actual evidence.
So the crucial point here is a little concept called the fear of the unknown. It's the psychological discomfort and speculation that gets triggered when humanity confronts environments it just does not fully understand. And these stories, they endure decade after decade because they tap directly into our deepest, most primal anxieties. It's that unsettling reality that even our greatest, bravest explorers sometimes return home with way more questions than answers about what's actually lurking out there in the dark.
And that leads us to our final section, Chapter 6, The Real Question. If we look past all the endless internet debates, the true philosophical takeaway here is pretty stark. Humanity still understood almost nothing about the universe around it. The Apollo astronauts traveled farther than any humans before them, way out into the darkness between worlds. And what these files truly reveal is a deeply humbling realization. The greatest mystery isn't necessarily what we discovered on the moon, but the stark reminder of just how much we still do not know about the cosmos.
So, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Do the Apollo missions still hide mysteries we haven't solved? Maybe those lights really were just ice crystals and cosmic rays. Or maybe there are pieces of this giant puzzle out there that we still haven't put together yet. Keep exploring the vast unknowns of space, because the deeper we look into the dark, the stranger it becomes, for sure. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.